Hello friends, what's up? It's Jaime here. Welcome back to another Fangirl Fridays video. For today's Fangirl Fridays video, I'm finally going to be talking about one of my favorite movies from 2023, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I have been wanting to talk about this movie since I saw it in theaters back in August of last year, but obviously because of the actor's strike, I couldn't, but now I can, and I am so excited. If you've been following me for a long time, then it is no secret to you that I am a huge fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It is my favorite franchise of all time. I'm currently wearing my Ninja Turtles 80s shirt right now. I originally became a Ninja Turtles fan back in 2012 with the Nickelodeon cartoon, and I've literally watched I have watched that show like probably at least a minimum of 10 times through, like the entire show. I love it so much. It's my favorite show ever. I've watched all of the Ninja Turtles movies except for that one Christmas like musical special that they did in 1994. I didn't even know that movie existed until like a month or two ago. But maybe I'll watch it. We'll see. Maybe it's camp. And I'm currently making my way through all of the other Ninja Turtles cartoons. I've watched Rise, currently making my way through the 2003, and then I'll probably go to the 80s from there. I also just found out that I can get the IDW comics on my Kindle, so I am very, very excited to take advantage of that. In other words, I am a huge fan, just this huge mega fan of everything and anything Ninja Turtles related. So when they announced that they were making Mutant Mayhem, I was excited, but like cautiously excited, because as much as I love Ninja Turtles, I am very well aware, like, and I've watched every single one of the movies like at least a couple times through. I am hyper aware of the fact that, you know, not every Ninja Turtles movie, even if I enjoyed watching it, is necessarily good. Like, I've watched the 2014 and 2016 Michael Bay movies on like Tubi a dozen times each, and they're both garbage, but like I kind of love them. And like, you know, the 1990s like Secret of the Ooze and Turtles in Time, I wouldn't exactly call either of those cinematic masterpieces either, but they're like camp, so it's like okay. But so like Ninja Turtles movies, they're really like a toss-up. You never know whether you're gonna get like Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know what I mean? Like, it's a gamble every time. And you know, we had just come off of the Rise movie, which was good, but obviously that did not guarantee that Mutant Mayhem was going to be good because it's made by different people. And I was particularly worried because I went to go see Mutant Mayhem with Adam, my boyfriend, and he's still very new to Ninja Turtles as a franchise, and so I didn't want his first Ninja Turtles movie to be a flop. But thankfully, this movie just absolutely exceeded my expectations. It's honestly probably my favorite Ninja Turtles movie. It used to be Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I still love that movie, but I think Mutant Mayhem, I'm gonna have to give the edge to that movie. So without further ado, I'm gonna stop rambling in this intro so that I can ramble about Mutant Mayhem. If you're at least a little familiar with any iteration of Ninja Turtles, then you probably have like the general gist of like Ninja Turtles lore, the usual story. But in case you are unfamiliar, so basically you have 4 baby turtles and a rat who come into contact with the substance called mutagen or ooze. They're used and interchangeably. They actually make kind of a joke about it in this movie, which I think is quite funny. And they all get mutated. The rat's name is Splinters. Now, Splinter, depending on the iteration of Ninja Turtles, is either the pet of the former pet of a ninja master, or sometimes he is a human who was a ninja master who then gets mutated into like this humanoid rat. Or sometimes he's just a regular rat who learns ninjutsu on his own. Splinter teaches the turtles ninjutsu and raises them like sons. He names them after the 4 famous Renaissance artists, Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael. And, you know, they live in the sewers, they fight crime, and they eat pizza. There is quite an extensive gallery of Ninja Turtles villains that exist across every, like, iteration, but typically their two main enemies are the Krang, which is like this alien race is usually the ones that like brought the mutagen to Earth, and the Shredder, who is this evil ninja master who either has a vendetta against Splinter if he was the human ninja master, or in iterations where Splinter is like the pet rat of a ninja master, he has like a rivalry with Splinter's master. Again, there are a lot of other like iconic Ninja Turtles villains that we see a good amount of them in this movie, but the Krang and the Shredder are like the two like usually the biggest of the big bads. So in the Mutant Mayhem version of Ninja Turtles, Splinter is a regular rat who gets mutated alongside the 4 baby turtles after an explosion causes mutagen to fall into the sewers of New York City. Splinter names the turtles Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, trains them in ninjutsu after teaching himself so that they can protect themselves from humanity. Now, in several iterations of Ninja Turtles, I feel like the turtles generally have like this general fascination with humans in the human world, but in Mutant Mayhem, they make that like a central focus of the turtles and their story. The Mutant Mayhem turtles want to go live amongst the humans. They want to be regular teens and go to high school and have crushes, which puts them at odds with Splinter, because Splinter very much after like this one specific incident where he was attacked by humans, where him and the turtles were attacked by humans when they were younger, like he's like, no humans, I do not trust any humans at all, like we stay in the sewers where it is safe. But one night after going up to the surface to run errands, because that's kind of a thing that the turtles generally have to do, is to get supplies, get groceries, they have to go up to the surface to get those things. But usually it's like Splinter's like, you go up and you come right back down. But one night the turtles spot this human girl. Her name is April O'Neil, but we will get to her in a sec. And she gets her moped stolen. Now Leo is instantly smitten with April just from the moment he lays eyes on her. He just has this enormous crush on her. And so he gets his brother, he's like, listen, we gotta go get her moped back. So the turtles, they beat up this gang of criminals who had stolen April's moped so that they can return it to her. They return it to her, they reveal themselves, they introduce themselves to her, and April becomes their first human friend. Now, April is a staple of the Ninja Turtles franchise. She is in every iteration, and she's usually like their first and sometimes like one of their only human friends. And she sometimes acts as like a big sister to the turtles, depending on the version. She also usually has some kind of connection to journalism, but not always. Regardless, April generally acts as the turtles' link to the human world. And so in this movie, April like approaches them and is like, hey, I am currently investigating this criminal who's known as Superfly. And like, if you guys can take him down, because he's causing a lot of problems around the city, like if you guys can defeat him and then I report on it and, you know, spread the word of like your guys' good deeds, then like the humans, they will accept you. So that's basically like the setup for this movie. Superfly is the main villain, and he gathers this army of mutants that consist of classic Ninja Turtles villains. Like you got Bebop and Rocksteady, you have Leatherhead, you have Genghis Frog. I'm very curious if we're ever going to see like the other, like in the Mutant Mayhem verse, if we're ever going to see the other punk frogs. But we have Genghis Frog at least for right now. Like Ray Fillet, etc., etc. And for basically like all of the villains like in this movie, they're all voiced by like these big like celebrity actors and like whatnot. And it actually works. Like you have Ice Cube as Superfly, John Cena as Rocksteady, Seth Rogen as Bebop. It was his production company that produced this movie, so that makes sense. One of my personal faves was Post Malone as fucking Ray Fillet. Like he has a very small role, but I just thought that was very funny. And I think genuinely they all did a very good job. At first I was like, I don't really know if I care to have like all these celebrities as the villains, but I'm glad that at least like the for the turtles and for April, that they weren't like supposed to be kind of, I guess, these like stunt castings. But you might have noticed with me talking about all these villains that are in this movie that I have not actually mentioned the Krang or Shredder, and that's because neither are actually in this movie, though they've both been kind of like hinted / teased. Well, the Shredder has been more explicitly teased for the second movie. But so that's very interesting to me because again, like the Krang and the Shredder are kind of like these very quintessential parts of Ninja Turtles, at least in my opinion. And so I think it's always very interesting when they kind of choose for new iterations of Ninja Turtles to kind of stray away from that. Like in Rise, like they have like their version of like Shredder and the Krang, but they don't really come into play like until like later in like the series and the movie. And then like even I hate to fucking bring Michael Bay into this more than I already have in this video, but like in the Michael Bay movies, like you had Shredder in the first movie, but he was kind of just like a proxy villain, like he wasn't really like Shredder. And then you get Krang in the second movie, which is like whatever. But like, you know, but it's just interesting to me that like they kind of chose to center a bunch of other villains that weren't the Krang or the Shredder in this movie. And again, like at first I was apprehensive towards that because I'm like such a, again, I don't have to say this, I've said this a million times, I'm such a like 2012 Ninja Turtles girl. Like that is my version of Turtles. That will always be my version of Turtles. Like listen, I'm always welcoming like the new generations, the new iterations of the franchise, but 2012, that will always be like my absolute favorite. But so like in the 2012 series, like the Krang and Shredder are basically like brought in like right from the jump. And so I think it's always interesting when they kind of like in new iterations, they kind of depart from that. And so I was concerned it wasn't gonna work at first in this movie, but I actually think it works pretty well. Like I didn't mind Superfly and like the gaggle of mutants that he assembled for his army being like the main focus, the main villains. I actually thought that it was fine. But now enough about the villains. I want to talk about our main cast. I'm dying to talk about these turtles. I love these turtles. I think that they did such a great job with this version of these characters because, you know, in every iteration of Ninja Turtles, the four turtles usually have like their general personality types, like, you know, at least for the most part, not always, but like generally, you know, Leo is the leader, Donnie is the brains, Raph is the hot-headed angry one, and Mikey is the goofball. But so in Mutant Mayhem, you know, the turtles have those like classic traits that are kind of like, usually they're like core parts of their characters, but they still feel like new characters. I particularly loved how they, and it definitely, I feel like it's contributed to the fact that half of the Ninja Turtles cast at least half of the turtles are voiced by Black actors. But they use a lot of like particularly like New York slang, but particularly like Black New York slang that I've just heard the people around me speak as a New Yorker myself, like throughout my life. And I know I know that some people found it very corny, but I found it kind of endearing because I'm just like, you know what, like they're just being goofy little like silly, you know, little teenagers. Like they're just being silly, and I felt like that also helped like bring in like even just like new personality into these turtles. And so I love that they were able to again balance like their classic character traits while also bringing like a new fresh take on these turtles. I especially have just like such a soft spot for Mutant Mayhem Leo. Like again, y'all probably gonna get sick of me saying this over and over again, but 2012, it's like those are my turtles. 2012 Leo, that is my guy. But Mutant Mayhem Leo is a close second for sure. Like he's just such a silly little dork and I love him. Like I love that little guy. Again, these turtles just like work so well in this movie. It's just, it's so fantastic. And you know, I was thinking about because like part of the reason I feel like why even some of like the better Ninja Turtles movies don't necessarily work is because they usually forget that Ninja Turtles is an ensemble piece. Because while there tends to be usually like this focus on Leo, in at least several iterations, it's not always the case, but in a lot of iterations, Leo, because he's the leader, he's like kind of the main character. But really, when you kind of like step back for a second, like Ninja Turtles, like they're an ensemble. Like, because the other turtles, they're not just there to support Leo's story. Like they're all in this together, you know? And So it's always really unfortunate when like the movies forget that, because yeah, like the other turtles, they aren't just supposed to be like supporting characters or side characters, again, to support like Leo's story. They're important too. And I feel like Mutant Mayhem does a really good job of like understanding that. It definitely helps that the cast has really great chemistry, like Nicholas Cantu, Micah Abbey, Shimon Brown Jr., Brady Noon, like they all did such a fantastic job at bringing these turtles to life. They're incredible actors. They are just so talented, and it's just such a joy to watch them banter. From what I'm aware, I think they like improvise like a good amount of like lines, and it just added so much. They did their performances were just they were perfect in this movie. It's also really cool that this is the first time that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were voiced by actual teenagers. I mean, no disrespect at all to the Ninja Turtles actors who came before. Like, there is quite the legacy of just like the most incredible voice actors who have, again, voiced the turtles of of years past. So absolutely no disrespect to them. Like, they are all fantastic. But I do think it is pretty cool that these turtles were voiced by actual teens. I also think it was cool that the turtles had this like collective arc of wanting humans to accept them, wanting to live amongst humans, because it really helped to like make them feel like even more of like this unit, that they had this like collective want that they were like aiming towards. Because, and it's also just like, I don't think, at least to my knowledge, I don't think that they've ever like really done a storyline like this in this capacity before in the franchise. Again, it just really helped the turtles feel like this team who are all working towards this collective goal of wanting the humans to accept them, while also having their individual personalities shine through. And it was just great. It was just so great. I also actually like what they did with Splinter in this movie. I like that he felt like a parent. I really do prefer the iterations of Ninja Turtles where Splinter feels like a proper father to the turtles. I always think it's just, I feel like it adds like this level of just like sweetness to their bond and their stories. Though I'm generally not super crazy about like stories, like iterations of Ninja Turtles where Splinter is just a regular rat who learns ninjutsu on his own. But in this movie, I didn't really mind it that much. Like, it was okay. But my one gripe, and part of the reason why I don't particularly love it when Splinter's just like this regular rat who doesn't have like an original connection to ninjutsu in any way, is that I'm like, I don't know how then they're gonna really set up, if they are gonna set it up, like the Splinter Shredder rivalry in this version of Turtles. Because to me, the Splinter versus Shredder rivalry is one of, again, those like quintessential parts of Ninja Turtles, and it's just so much more meaningful when there's an actual like relationship between Splinter and Shredder. Like, they knew each other at some point. It's always more impactful that way, at least for me. But hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be okay in the sequel. But you know who I'm really excited to see more of in the sequel? April O'Neil! Mutant Mayhem April is my new favorite April. Again, 2012 April will always hold a very special place in my heart. She's definitely still, like, for me, like, top 3 Aprils in the Ninja Turtles franchise. But Mutant Mayhem April is just so cool. I love that this April is an aspiring journalist, because, again, that kind of pays homage to Aprils that came before her who were either journalists or had an interest in journalism in one way or another. And I love that she's like awkward and camera shy, even though she kind of overcame that fear in this movie, but also not quite. But it just made her like even more relatable. Like, I was just like, oh girl, I'm like, I feel I was like, oh, I feel so bad for her. But she's also really funny, and she's also like very resourceful and just like passionate about journalism. And she's so cool. I love her so much. I really hope that we get to see a progression of April as like a journalist throughout like the movie series as well as the animated series, which yes, I will be talking about that later. Because to me, having April kind of like have this very like journalistic, investigative personality, I feel like helps her get close to the action, but not so close that she's like putting herself in danger. Though I do wonder if they'll, at some point, again, in either the future movies or the animated series, if they'll decide to, like, have this April learn some method of self-defense, like 2012 April or Rise April, because that could be interesting. But even not, like, even if she doesn't, she's still a really interesting character, just like as she is now. And I just can't wait to see more of her, because Iowa Debris just absolutely killed it in this role. She's so good. I'm so excited that she's coming back for the animated series. Like, Iowa Debris is a star. Like, it is her world and we are just living in it, and she was just absolutely perfect for this role. And I know that the racists and the fat phobes were all up in arms over Twitter when the first, like, sneak peeks of Mutant Mayhem were released. First of all, shut the fuck up. She looks fantastic. Second of all, every iteration of Ninja Turtles is canonically its own dimension. And sometimes the dimensions will cross over, like we saw with the 2012 series and the 80s series, what we saw with the 80s series and the 2003 series, but they are each their own, like, separate, like, alternate dimension. And so you really think, you really want to tell me, like, that in every single dimension, every single version of Ninja Turtles, April is white? Get fucking real. Your racism is showing. And finally, everyone always wants to rant about, oh, why do they have to, like, take these old characters who are white and make them black? Why can't they just make new black characters? And listen, I'm aware that taking historically white characters and making them black is, like, the bare minimum of representation. It's honestly, like, yeah, it tends to be a pretty just, like, lazy way for, like, companies to kind of, like, shoe in some diversity. But the problem is that the people who are usually, like, voicing that complaint are not doing so from a place of, like, actually wanting to see new original black characters in media. They just don't want to see black characters at all. Because if you are rightfully going to call out that, hey, taking historically white characters and making them black should not be the only kind of representation of black characters we see in media. Like, there should be more, like, original black characters in media, which again, I feel is a very valid argument, very valid concern to have. Then you also need to then be doing, like, you need to really be pushing for supporting black stories with new, again, original black characters in books, in shows, movies, video games, whatever is your preferred media, because then otherwise it just shows me that you're not actually that concerned about, like, the creation of more black characters, of there being more black representation in media. It's just showing me, again, that you just don't want to see black characters. And with Ninja Turtles specifically, like, there have always been black, Asian, Latinx, even queer characters in various versions of the Ninja Turtles comics. So it's not even as if they're trying to appeal to the woke mob or whatever fuckers on Twitter are saying these days. I don't fucking know at this point, because they all just sound so brainless. It's like I lose brain cells every time I go on Twitter. But it's like they're literally just doing what they've always done. And it's like, what, like, you're just now noticing that there are black, like, characters in Ninja Turtles? Like, I'm sorry, like, you just sound so dumb. You're it's so annoying. Anyway, on a less serious note, I know that with Ninja Turtles and the romances that they sometimes have between, or kind of like the hinted at romances between, like, turtles and humans, it can be a little, you know, a bit of a slippery slope. But I think that so listen, okay, I'm not exactly, like, rooting for April and Leo per se, but I do think that they have a very sweet friendship dynamic. I think I really love their friendship. I think it's just very sweet. It's one of my favorite parts of this movie. But yeah, so I don't know if I'm really, like, legitimately rooting for them to have a romantic relationship, but I really hope we get to see more of their friendship, because I think it's really, it's just really sweet. In case you couldn't tell, I love this movie so much. I could literally talk about it forever. I'm super, super excited for the sequel. I can't wait to see how they're gonna explore this new dynamic of the turtles being, again, known by humans and like accepted into society, because again, that's really, I mean, I can't believe I have to keep fucking bringing Michael Bay into this, but in the 2016 movie, they do, like, you know, what is it, the police, the police know who they are. But like, besides that, doing it in this way where like the humans know about the turtles, like all humans basically, like the world knows about them. Like, it's never, again, to my knowledge, I don't think it has ever really been done before. So I'm really curious of like the ways, like the storylines that can come from this. I can't wait to see what they do with Shredder. I hope that we get like a proper Krang reveal, or at least the hint that we're going to see Krang. Well, the Krang, not just Krang, not Krang singular, but like the Krang just in general. I mean, sometimes it's Krang singular, but it'd be kind of cool if we saw like multiple Krangs. But you know who I really hope that we get to see in this sequel? I want to see Casey. I really hope we get to see Casey Jones, who, if you don't know, is very much a staple of the Ninja Turtles franchise. I'm very curious, is Casey going to be a girl in like the Mutant Mayhem verse? Is Casey going to be a guy? Like, neither. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do with Casey. I mean, as long as this Casey plays hockey, like, I'm just excited to see Casey. I'm also so stoked for the 2D animated series that's coming out this summer. Oh my gosh, I felt so bad because when I saw the news for it online the other day, like Adam, he was sleeping, he was taking a nap, and I was just like scrolling through my phone, like going through Instagram, and I saw the news, and I squealed, and I disturbed him from his nap. He was able to go back to sleep afterwards, but I felt really bad. But I was just so excited, I was losing my mind. The animation style looks really good. It very much reminds me of when they would do like 2D animated shorts for the 2012 series, which it just like, it makes sense because like the 2012 and Mutant Mayhem are both like CGI, like animated-esque. And so kind of, it makes sense to, at least to me in my brain, that when you translate those characters, those designs into like a 2D, like animated kind of like setting, that they would look kind of similar, but they're still very like different, of course. I don't know how this series is gonna like, if it's gonna like really follow like the movies, or if it's gonna kind of go like off on like have it's like its different story, but still like kind of like have like it's still gonna kind of follow the story from the movies like a little bit. I'm not sure how they're gonna handle that, but I'm very excited to find out. I love this cast. I love these characters so much. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're getting a new Turtles like cartoon. Oh my gosh, I'm just so fucking excited. It is such a great time to be a Turtles fan right now. I can't wait for when this series comes out and I get to force Adam to watch it with me. And it's just gonna be a great time. I'm so excited. All right, that is all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're a Ninja Turtles fan, please let me know down below in the comments what your like version of Turtles is, because I know that everybody has their version of Turtles. Like, even if like for me, like I like multiple versions, multiple iterations of the Turtles, but again, obviously, like I've already said a million times, 2012, like I am a 2012 girl, because that was the version that I watched when I was a kid. So I know everybody like who's a Turtles fan has like their version. So if you are a Ninja Turtles fan, I would love to know like what is your version? What vibes, like which version of Turtles did you love the most? I could literally talk about Ninja Turtles for hours, and I mean I have in my real life. But I plan on making a video about the 12-year anniversary for 2012 TMNT this September. Very excited about that. I also am probably gonna make a video about Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is the Mutant Mayhem cartoon spin-off sequel series, whatever you want to call it. So very, very excited. Once I've watched all of that, I'll definitely be making a video. So hopefully you guys like my Turtles content, because it's not going anywhere. I just realized that I had it on the wrong camera setting for the past couple of takes. Whoops. But anyway, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I upload Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, except when I don't. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.